Okay, folks, it's Sukkah. It is Sukkot. Probably the happiest day. No, I can't say that. Yom Kippur is the happiest day of the year, the time in which we have the most simcha, maybe is the right way to describe it. It's a very special time. I'm sitting in my sukkah. It's just me and you right now, but other times we have folks filling up the sukkah as well. And mostly we have the energy of Hashem that fills the sukkah and protects us. We're going to talk a little bit about sukkahs today. Some of the things I have to say may not be new to you, but they're worth reviewing. And some may be things you haven't heard before, God willing. So Sukkot, first of all, comes at the end of the month or in the middle to the end of the month of Tishrei, beginning on the 15th of Tishrei, 5 days after Yom Kippur, and ending 7 or 8 days later with Sukkah Torah, Shmini Atzeret, before that Hoshana Rabbah. And it's a time of a great deal of celebration. It's also the time of the ending and the beginning of the Torah as well. That's part of Sukkah Torah, which deserves its own conversation at a future time. I can't promise it this year. But let's talk about Sukkot itself, right? So Sukkot is viewed as the end of really 3 cycles that are part of the Jewish year. One you could say is redundant, and the other 2 are separate. Okay, so Sukkot finishes the cycle of the 3 holidays, the Shalosh Regolim, the 3 legs of the Jewish calendar. You know, you can't, a table can't stand on 2 legs, but a tripod can be reasonably solid. So we have the first holiday, Pesach, right? And that's when we became a nation, when we left Egypt. In Egypt we became a nation, and then we left and became a fully born nation. The second holiday in the middle of the summer is Shavuos, right? Shavuos we associate with the giving of the Torah, and also it's a very important agricultural holiday. And the last holiday is in the fall, Sukkot, right? So that's the cycle of the 3 major pilgrimage holidays that we have in our calendar. And let's look at them a little bit more carefully. The creation of our nation in Pesach must come in the spring, in Aviv. Our calendar is set so that it always comes in the springtime. Aviv is spring. And unlike the Georgian calendar, which is solar-based, ours is lunar solar-based. And unlike the Muslim calendar, which is purely lunar-based, and so a holiday like Ramadan can come in June or in December, right? But for us, Pesach is the beginning of the holiday season. It is the first month of the year it comes in, Nisan, and it is associated with the creation of the nation, and also it is the time of the planting of seeds for the farmer. Shavuos comes at a high point at a time associated with the giving of the Torah, but also of the cutting of the grain, first barley and then wheat, and the bringing of the first fruits as well. And that's at the high summer time, July usually, August, somewhere in there, June possibly. And then comes Sukkot. So Sukkot is associated with the ingathering. That is to say, after you cut the grain, it stays in the fields to dry and become ready for storage for the whole year long. Right? If it rains during that time, it's very bad because the grains can rot. So when the ingathering happens, it's a tremendous celebration for the farmer. It's the climax of the entire season. When the rainy season begins again after Shmini Atzeret and Sukkah Torah, is the time the planting begins again. And the big gamble begins for the farmer. He's going to put the seeds in the right place, but what will happen, he doesn't know. Right? He knows when he brings the grain in at Sukkot. So it's a tremendous celebration. If you want to get a snapshot of what a joyous time this is, I would suggest you read the book of Ruth, which is usually associated more with Shavuos, but you'll get a sense of how joyous it was when they collected the bounty of the harvest and brought it in to the safety of storage and available for the whole year. Remember, at the time that the Torah was given, really until very recently, sometimes anywhere from 70 to 90% of people were employed in agriculture in Israel and in many other countries. So this was not simply, it's nice, we got fresh fruit in the stores. This was a life and death issue, this cycle that existed. And it corresponds to Jewish history. We have the seed of Judaism as a nation, the Jewish people as a nation, developing in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, and then God takes us out of the land of slavery, and off we go. We get Torah at a high point in the summer when things are blossoming and fruit is coming into its own and grain is in good shape. And then comes the time of the ingathering. The ingathering can be associated with grain, fruit, or with people, with our own people. Ingathering, coming back to where? Coming back to the land that was promised by God to Abraham, to Yitzchak, to Yaakov, to the Jewish people. And that's the time we're living in now, with the ingathering of them. We get support from some of our friends that come to celebrate what they call tabernacles in Israel as well. But the main thing is it's the ingathering of the Jewish people themselves back to the land of Israel, Eretz HaKodesh. And that's associated with this time. What's the other cycle? The other cycle is the one we've just finished, that of Tishrei, or we're finishing Tishrei, right? It begins in Elul when we're preparing for the Day of Judgment, Rosh Hashanah. Then we have the 10 days in which between the writing in the Book of Life and the sealing in the Book of Life in Yom Kippur. And then at the end of Yom Kippur, we understand that a judgment has been sealed in the Book of Life. And we're confident, Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, sealed us for a good year, God willing. And so we have much to celebrate during Sukkot, Simchas Torah, Shmini Atzeret. So that's another cycle, the cycle of Tishrei, right? I combined two cycles together. One was the agricultural one of the year, and the other was the development of the Jewish people from planting to harvest and gathering. So those are the two cycles, right? And the celebration that goes with it. Let's talk a little bit about the sukkah itself. I'm sitting in the sukkah. The sukkah can be made of any material, really, except for the roof. The roof has to be made from something that was originally living but is not now. So these are bamboo mats. You have to be able to see. You can see the light up here. Up there. You have to be able to see the stars at night through the sky, and it has to be able to actually rain come through the sky. So what are we learning from this? We're learning from this that there's a vulnerability. Now, I'm going to jump ahead. Reb Shimshon Raphael Hirsch tells us about the sukkah. It's something very interesting. The scripture that is read during this time in the Haftorahs, the prophets, is about the war of Gog and Magog. It's about the final struggle before Mashiach is revealed. So what is Gog and Magog? In Hebrew, the word Gog means roof. Roof, right? Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch says that people build walls to protect themselves from other people. For forts, walled cities, and gated communities for that matter. Those walls are built to protect the inhabitants from potential enemies, right? And the walls of a sukkah can be made out of stone, concrete, very solid, right? But not the roof. The roof has to allow the sun, the moon, and rain to... The schach creates a frailty because water can come in and ruin your meal, if it rains. Or it can create extra soup. And you have to be able to see the stars. So it's a porous kind of roof that you have. So this is Rev Hirsch's point, is that people who build solid walls for their homes, right, are building them to protect themselves from other folks, right? People who build solid roofs are trying to protect themselves from the will of God. We see when there are, tragic hurricanes, volcanoes, people call natural disasters, that all of the best laid plans go for naught. When a tornado comes and tears roofs off and throws cars and boats around, it's something that we cannot protect ourselves from. The Jewish people know this and they understand this, because that's what a sukkah is. We are the schach people. This roof here is called schach, all right? And Rav Hirsch's point is that the world is divided into two kinds of people. I know, those who say it's divided into two kinds, and those who don't. Rav Hirsch says that the world is divided into two kinds of people. The Jewish people who are conscious day in and day out that they live in a universe controlled by the Ribono Shel Olam, by the master of the universe. There are people who don't believe that. They believe that they control their existence. And those are the people who believe in roofs. So the war of Gog and Magog is really the war of the roof people versus the schach people. And we should always be reminded that we ourselves are schach people. We know the power and the strength of God as expressed in this world. There is an idea of fear of God as well as love of God. It's a class in its own. I won't go into it now what that means. But I want to get to the love of God, because that's the other element. The sukkah is a place of peace. It's a meditative place. It's a place you dwell in. Here in Israel, many people sleep in the sukkah. In Canada, the very brave sleep in the sukkah. I've done it a few times. Here, it's the best room in the house. It's simple, it's beautiful, it's naturally air-conditioned by the breeze. It's absolutely lovely. And the Arizal, one of the great mystics, Jewish mystics of Tzvat, explains a halacha of building a sukkah. A sukkah doesn't have to have 4 walls. It must have 3 walls, minimally, 3 walls, to be a sukkah, to qualify as a sukkah, right? Where are those walls? The Arizal says 2 of the walls should be complete walls, right? And a 3rd wall can be very small. And now I'm going to do a little show and tell. So you could have, where is it here? Okay, there it is. Okay. You could have wall number 1, wall number 2, wall number 3. This is not considered to be kosher. Wall number 3 needs to be connected to the other 2. You see, like so, right? And this reminds the Arizal of the Song of Songs. It's a love song between the Jewish people and God. It's a very, very beautiful poem written by Shlomo HaMelech. using a lover and his, I don't know, girlfriend, paramour, as a metaphor for the Jewish people and God. And this idea of the sukkah, where the third wall has to be connected, is a thought that the Arizal explains is what happens when a man and his wife, he puts his arm under her head and holds her. So what does he have? He has one wall here, and then a small wall here that goes around. It's a very romantic idea. I think you get it. So I want to close with this thought, that each of you should enjoy your sukkah in your own way, meditative, celebration, l'chaim. They say that if you have one glass of wine, normally you should have two during Sukkot. It's a Hasidic thing, I believe. They say if you have no wine at all, usually, have one glass and enjoy it. It's a time to feel good and to enjoy the bounty and the gifts of God. The biggest gift maybe for us is the land of Israel. Israel is the place of the ingathering. Come join us. It is your home. Sukkot Sameach, Chag Sameach. David Ostriker, here in Karmiel.